The British economy has taken several knocks as experts announced last week that a slump in construction output had driven the UK into a deeper recession than initially thought. Combined with retailers such as Marks & Spencer forced to slash targets for the year, it appears that consumers are becoming increasingly pessimistic about their personal circumstances over the next 12 months. But can the Diamond Jubilee weekend and the London Olympics tempt consumers and provide the capital the UK's hard-pressed retail sector desperately needs? Joining me on the phone now is Andrew Goodwin, Economic Advisor at Ernst Young ITEM Club in London. Andrew, thank you for speaking with me. The Consumer Confidence Survey is due to be released later today. The indicator declined in April following the news that the economy has shrunk for a second quarter in the 3 months through March. Can we expect further decline?
Well, I think certainly we'd expect confidence to have stabilised in May and possibly even increased. I think what you tend to see with this sort of indicator is it's very heavily tied to people's perceptions of their own personal finances and their employment situation. And what we saw back in April was petrol prices increasing and people getting very concerned about the sort of the squeeze on household finances. Since then, that pressure has eased quite significantly. Petrol prices have fallen quite a lot, and I think people will be generally feeling better about that. And alongside that as well, you've obviously got the labour markets improving and unemployment falling and employment levels increasing. So I'd be surprised if it fell any further. I think we could actually see confidence increasing.
This weekend is the Diamond Jubilee, and the summer will also see London host the 2012 Olympic Games. Retailers will be hoping that these events bounce consumers out of a spending slump, as well as profiting from tourist trade. Is this likely?
Certainly, we're quite optimistic that the Olympics, in particular, will bring an increase in trade for retailers, but also sort of for other categories of consumer spending, particularly things like sort of hotels and restaurants and sort of accommodation services in general. Obviously, I think there will be an increase in tourist spend over that sort of period. But obviously, I think we have to remember it is only a sort of 3-week period or so. So this isn't going to be the sort of the magic bullet that sort of sends us towards recovery. However, I think we are sort of more optimistic about the outlook for consumers and retailers in general, sort of over the second half of the year, simply because of what's happening to people's finances and the idea that inflation is slowing. And that people's sort of household finances in real terms, so adjusted for inflation, should start to improve. So we're hoping that the Olympics is sort of really the starting point for a revival, and that then the sort of domestic demand then starts to pick up thereafter.
Last year saw a rise in sentiment around the time of the royal wedding, although this quickly subsided as the economy remained weak. This suggests, as you've mentioned, that these one-off events can only provide short-term relief from a long-term problem. What steps do you think retailers and government need to take in order to improve 2012's forecast?
Well, I think at the moment what we're seeing is really a sort of range of different pressures on the UK economy. You've obviously got the squeeze on household finances from persistently high inflation and weak earnings growth, but we do think that will ease as the year goes on. But in terms of sort of the wider economy, you've still got pressures from the Eurozone, which are really sort of bearing down on both sort of directly in terms of what it's doing to export demand, but also more indirectly in terms of what it's doing to confidence and what it's doing to things like business investment. I think what we really need to happen is for those sort of pressures to ease somewhat, for businesses to go out there and start spending their cash piles. And for that to then sort of generate some sort of momentum. I think certainly our sort of view is that the most likely thing is that we will see the recovery really start to gain momentum over the back end of the year, starting with the Olympics and those sort of events, but then sort of becoming more self-sustaining. But even then, it's going to be quite a long haul and a sort of long road to recovery. In terms of what the government can do, I think certainly the government can do more in terms of things like infrastructure spending and the like, and trying to spend more money in that sense. But really, its hands are fairly sort of tied on the basis that we are sort of 2 years now into a 7-year austerity plan. It's pain that we need to go through. It's something that is a sort of necessary evil. And I think in those sort of terms, the government really doesn't have a huge amount of weapons in its arsenal to drive us forward towards recovery.
The Bank of England will be releasing their rate decision next Thursday. Do you foresee any changes here?
Well, I think the bank sort of made quite clear in the May inflation report that it thought it had done its job for the time being. The previous round of quantitative easing had come to an end, and it decided not to extend it any further. I'm not really sort of very optimistic that they'll do anything next week either. I think certainly that the data hasn't moved in that sort of direction over the last sort of few weeks. But I think that there are things the bank could do where it minded to, sort of further down the line. More quantitative easing could be an option, and I think it said it would do that if conditions warranted it. But it could also intervene more directly into the banking system and try and really sort of improve the access to credit, improve liquidity in the banking system, and also try and reduce banks' borrowing costs, which I think are potentially a bigger issue than certainly could be a better solution than maybe some of the solutions they've been using so far.
Andrew, thanks very much. The Dukascopy TV team will be bringing you more exclusive interviews as well as the all-important Week Ahead interview, so stay tuned.